these programs and these kinds of collaborative and co-productive experiments are not just about the knowledge that's being produced. There's all sorts of other kinds of things that are happening around them. Just for those who may not know the details of it, there are PhDs who are embedded in the city of Cape Town who work on very particular issues. So those were around climate change, energy governance, green governance, the space economy, transit-oriented development, localization of SDGs, cultural mapping, planning, and impact assessment. And the idea is that the embedded researchers working with a city champion in order to use both evidence-based academic research and the kinds of practical knowledge that city officials have. But obviously, it sounds simple on paper, but the reality is that there are quite a few dynamics to navigate. So there are different paces, right? Scholarship can be quite slow, whereas the city needs speedy decision making. I mean, there are different institutional dynamics, there are different spaces to work in. And there's obviously very different kinds of knowledge being brought together. So there's kind of technical and the theoretical knowledge that's happening. And so I think so some of the learning is substantive, but others are institutional and some others are tactical. And so a lot of the reflections that came out of the researchers, both the researchers and the partners, whether they were the writers or the champions in these programs, was that there's very helpful coming from these two different positions. So for example, a researcher coming in has an outside eye of some kind. So researchers are able to insert questions and say things that officials may not be able to say, given the hierarchies and given the institutional constraints. Researchers can identify new needs because they have some kind of distance from the process. Researchers can propose institutional changes that may better support the kinds of policies and implementation needed, where it might not be as easy for people in the city to do. And this is a reflection that came out of what it means to do these kinds of things. But there's also the kind of practice eye, that to kind of tempers the scholarly idealism and sort of, making certain arguments that might make a lot of sense in theory, but actually don't reflect what's actually happening. And so you can also ground theory in a real world conundrum. Allowing city officials to write up their research also gives them an opportunity to reflect on practice, to improve confidence about making evidence-based arguments based on the practice. And then also this idea of the application of theory and the theorizing from practice. So there's a kind of the benefits that everybody is getting that is about this intersection between scholarly knowledge and practical knowledge. And one of the things that came up from a lot of them was that how these spaces create non-hierarchical spaces for interdepartmental critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and a collegiality that sometimes institutional hierarchies don't allow for.